Has anyone come across a strange stock photo site? Pretty basic and generic looking at first, but with a, shall we say, sinister collection? I suppose I should be more descriptive and provide more information, but I also need to be careful not to provide too much. What I mean by that is, I genuinely don't believe anyone who hasn't already come across this site before should come across it. Like at all. Ever. Nope. Obviously, this means don't expect a URL from me. And before someone asks, no, this is not from some horrific corner of the dark web or anything. It's easily accessible, and I originally found it from a normal Google search when looking for images depicting a very specific situation. Also, I won't risk elaborating in case a foolhardy reader with more curiosity than sense uses it to search for this site, so don't ask. Interestingly, the exact search I use no longer brings results for the weird site anymore, though I know it's still there. As for how, I'll get to that. Anyway, when I first visited the website in question, there was not much to immediately separate it from normal stock photo websites. The layout is pretty generic, even basic, but there were more results for what I was looking for than anywhere else I'd come across so far. So at first I thought I'd hit the jackpot. A few of the photos had aspects making them seem a little off, such as odd expressions on people's faces, weirdly off-center shots, people in photos not looking at what they clearly should be looking at, etc. But I figured this was maybe just a matter of a quantity over quality kind of business model, a site including even clearly subpar options and all. After all, there were a lot of results to choose from, even for my niche of requirements. And again, I'd had no luck finding any strong matches from other sites and searches, and believe me, I tried for a while. Also, most of the first images I browsed through were innocuous, so I picked a decent couple of photos and moved on. I also had a need for depictions of several simpler, more common situations for my project, and I figured I might as well just get all the images I needed from the same site. This turned out to be a mistake I quickly regretted. At first, it really was just a few photos that seemed kind of off in ways I mostly brushed off to myself as results of shoddy photography or setup. For example, a child in a very lightly furnished hospital room, reading a book that appears blank from the page he's turning. Prop book, I guessed. A couple having a picnic in the park as a dark and blurry form loomed behind them. Random camera or photo development distortion, I told myself. Or an office scene with scattered bones and two people chatting next to a water cooler, filled with dark red, suspiciously blood-like liquid. Maybe it's supposed to be from right after a Halloween party? Honestly, some of them even reminded me of those what's wrong with this picture puzzles from when I was a kid. And I even kind of made a game out of it, looking for the weird little details. However, the results just seemed to get progressively more disturbing and less subtle the longer I searched. Here's a sample of some of the twisted gems I remember encountering by the time I was about 15 to 20 minutes in. Small children playing hopscotch on the edge of a cliff, one that cut off most of the final space. A realtor discussing a house in the yard with apparently prospective buyers, but with bodies visibly hanging inside next to every window. A department store with a disturbingly large population of mannequins, in positions of shoppers such as walking around the store with carts or holding up clothes, as if to examine them with non-existent eyes, all while actual people, or at least very convincingly human-like figures, stood where you would normally see mannequins, with expressions of a barely concealed terror plastered on their faces. A grocery store checkout, but with the only items being bought and bagged being dripping, unwrapped and unpackaged hunks of raw meat and viscera. A group of preteens playing cards and laughing, looking like they are enjoying a game of Texas Hold'em, but with what appear to be not playing cards but tarot with demonically styled illustrations. A limbless corpse, vertically sliced into long, 3 to 4 inch thick sections that had been stacked back together in the wrong order. A dentist holding a large drill next to a very alarmed looking patient without any teeth in a mouth held open almost impossibly wide by some weird clamps wrapping back around behind a blood-speckled headrest. An adorable green-eyed child, looked to be around 7 or 8 if I had to guess, was smiling at the camera as he stood in front of a mirror, as his scolding reflection somehow was also facing impossibly toward the camera, staring ominously forward with a facial expression of deep hatred and malice at either the photographer or the back of the child. It was hard to tell for sure since the reflection kid's eyes were completely black. I'll be honest, in retrospect I still perused the site longer than I should have, but it was like watching a car crash that you can't tear your eyes away from. In fact, there was actually a GIF of exactly that from when I searched running into a friend. 2 cars meeting in an almost completely head-on collision on what appeared to be an otherwise empty highway, with the car door opening as far as it still could shortly after, only for the mangled form of a burnt and broken woman. I think, honestly, it was hard to tell for sure from their condition to try and worm their way out. The person stumbled almost all the way out, but then stopped moving entirely for a second or two before the GIF reset. The most alarming to me, though, was definitely one that actually appeared downright pleasant at first, at least in comparison to some of the site's other bizarre offerings. Unlike most other pics so far, it appeared with the vague title or description, "No Match." This was odd since it depicted a woman in a beautiful summery dress smoking a clearly successfully lit cigarette outside on her apartment balcony next to a small boombox and a glass of red wine, looking past the apartment building next door onto the gorgeous sunset, just as the sun was halfway down the horizon. I found it a genuinely and refreshingly nice photograph, for about 5 seconds at least. That's when my little find the error game I'd been playing with myself earlier took a truly dark twist, as I noticed multiple little very wrong seeming details almost simultaneously. First, the boombox appeared to have some weird mold-like fuzz growing on the speaker areas, as if to enjoy a nutritious meal of plastic. There was also a withered and drooping potted flower on the ground, but the roots seemed to have grown out of the back over the edge of the pot, crawled back down the walls, all the while getting bigger and gnarlier as they snaked down past the bottom, off the edge of the balcony and out of view. On second glance, the odd pattern of circles on the woman's dress strongly resembled screaming faces. The sun was setting in the wrong direction. That might seem like a weird bit to pick out, but I knew that because of the last detail. I was in the photo. That apartment building I mentioned that the last subject was looking past, it was my apartment building. And the apartment directly across from hers was my apartment, with me visible through my own balcony windows, sitting and staring at my PC, wearing the exact same outfit that I just happened to be wearing that day. I immediately gasped and got up, then quickly glanced out the window to my balcony, the same one from where I myself like to go out after a long day and watch the sunset. On the other side of the sky, mind you. Directly across from my apartment, the building I saw was the same it always had been, a generic office building, void of any balconies. I summoned up every last bit of my courage and glanced back at my computer to look at the image more closely. It hadn't changed, but I now noticed the odd little shadows spattered across my apartment with no discernible matching object that could cast them, and the weird red glow from the window of the otherwise totally dark apartment next door. Also, and I double checked to confirm this fact later, but I was pretty sure no one currently lived in that one. After seeing that, the "oh fuck all this" part of my brain finally won out against the morbid curiosity part, and I tried to close the browser, but nothing happened when I clicked on the X, or when I then tried to stop Chrome via Task Manager. I even restarted my laptop, and lo and behold, Chrome immediately opened on my screen again, with every tab I'd had up before gone except for the stock photo site. I wasn't even asked if I wanted to restore tabs like usual or anything. It just opened straight back up. I turned off my laptop, trying and failing to convince myself that the striking similarities to me and my apartment were a coincidence. That the creepy ass site had just given me a virus or something. That I'd get some sleep, and take my laptop to someone more tech savvy in the morning. When I got up this morning, my laptop had disappeared. I looked all over my apartment, even though I knew I'd left it right where I'd slammed it shut last night, on the table next to the big balcony window. I am currently, to put this lightly, freaking the fuck out, and I keep seeing little inexplicable shadows darting across every room, though they actually seem to be getting bigger and bigger. This is a Hail Mary, I know, but if anyone has experience with this cursed website or whatever the hell is going on here, I could really use some guidance. Hopefully before I'm nowhere to be found beyond the background of that photo on that godforsaken website.